The Aroma Archetype are a series of cards primarily made up of plant-type monsters that all derive their names from species of flowers, typically harvested for their use as essential oil fragrances. Their first TCG debut was in 2015's Clash of Rebellions booster pack, with further support being released 1 year later in Invasion Vengeance. Their archetypal gimmick is that all of the Aroma monsters have 2 effects that revolve around the user's current life points. Specifically, they all have one continuous effect that applies as long as their owner has more life points than their opponent. They also have a secondary trigger effect that activates when their controller gains any life points. In essence, since each of the Aroma monsters are based on a type of aromatic essential oil, we could say that the life points are a metaphor for the level of heat, with all the Aroma monsters being placed inside an aroma lamp. So, as you increase your life points, the heat turns up, meaning you can blast your opponent with their different aromatic fragrances. So, knowing that each one of the Aroma monsters is based on a type of plant with a pleasant smell, how about we look at each one and see what benefits the monster gives the player and what each real-world plant counterpart allegedly grants the user. So let's start with Aroma Jar, known in the Japanese as Aroma Pot. Its effect is if this card is flipped face up, this card cannot be destroyed by battle while it is face up on the field. If this card is flipped face up during each player's end phase, you gain 500 life points. To start things off, Aroma Jar's effect has a unique claim, as it was the first flip effect monster not to start with flip in its card effect. Prior to this card, flip effects were a type of card effect identifiable by the capitalized use of the word flip at the start of a monster's effect. However, after Starter Deck 2014 in the OCG and Super Starter Spacetime Showdown in the TCG, flip is now treated as a card ability instead. So, the word flip is now written on the card's type and ability line instead. This seems to have been done to make it an easier way to categorize flip monsters into their own listings. However, this one I'm not too sure about. So this is where I want to pose the question to all of you. What is the benefit of now having flip as a card ability instead of an effect? Let me know in the comments section below, please, because it's something I don't know and I'd love to know about. Aroma Jar's name and design is referencing a device called an aroma lamp, sometimes known as a heat diffuser. They work by having a candle under a bowl full of water and one of the essential oils. The heat from the candle vaporizes the water and oil together, allowing the fragrant oils to be dispersed into the air for a very pleasant smell. This technique is also used in a practice called aromatherapy, which is where someone uses different types of oils made from different types of plants in order to help improve a person's psychological or physical well-being through the different oil fragrances. As a quick side note as well, aromatherapy is not a proven science and can be dangerous due to some oils producing harmful toxins to people. So make sure to keep this in mind, as any of the health benefits from aromatherapy that I will be discussing in today's episode are only alleged. So keep that in mind and don't get doing it for yourself if it puts you at risk. So there you go. However, getting back on track, Aroma Jar has 4 candles being used in its card artwork, and each one is a different colour. This is because each one is a representation of one of the monsters in the archetype. In fact, if we look around the Aroma Jar as well, we can see the Aroma monsters' namesakes themselves dotted around the jar. So I'm curious to know which is which, so how about we take a look at each one of the Aroma monsters and see what herb, flower, or essential oil they are all inspired by and what alleged beneficial effects they have. Starting with Aroma Sarahfey Angelica. Her effect is during either player's turn, you can discard this card, then target one aroma monster in your graveyard. Gain life points equal to the target's attack. While your life points are higher than your opponent's, you control an aroma monster, and this card is in your graveyard, you can special summon this card, but banish it when it leaves the field. You can only use the effect of Aroma Sarahfey Angelica once per turn. The only tuner monster of the aromas, Aroma Sarahfey Angelica, is based on the Angelica genus of plants, which typically grows up to around 3 meters tall, with the plant having large leaves with white or greenish white flowers growing on them. You can see allusions to this plant in the background of the monster's artwork. As well, this monster's wings are a mix of the whitish green and pure white colors used for the plant itself. In fact, Angelica's wings pretty much look like petals. In aromatherapy, it is said that the Angelica plant's beneficial effect is that it gives a calming and warming presence that improves and strengthens the breath. Whereas in terms of this monster's beneficial card effects, its continuous effect is its ability to special summon itself from the graveyard, as long as your life points are higher than your opponent's. And this monster's secondary trigger ability is actually quite different compared to all of its other counterparts, as instead of having an effect that applies when your life points are increased, instead, you can boost your own life points by discarding this card and choosing a monster in the graveyard to increase the life points based on that monster's attack. We see in this card's artwork, Angelica is admiring a white candle. This could be the same one used in Aroma Jar, however, it is more likely that the white candle is a reference to Aroma Jasmine instead, since Angelica wasn't released until a year after Aroma Jar was. Looking at the monster's name, we can see that the first part of Aroma Sarahfey is a play on the word aromatherapy. However, the actual word itself, Aroma Sarahfey, is a portmanteau of aroma and seraph, with aroma meaning a pleasant smell and seraph being an angelic being of purity and light. This, of course, matches with the monster's light attribute and angelic-like wings. In fact, speaking of those wings, since this monster is the only tuner monster of the group, it seems whoever Angelica tunes with, they gain this monster's wings. This is evidenced by Aroma Rosemarie, and by extension, it could also be giving monsters it links with its wings as well, such as in the case with Aroma Jasmine, who seems to have them too. In fact, speaking of Jasmine, Aroma Jasmine. Her effect is, during your main phase, while your life points are higher than your opponent's, you can normal summon one plant type monster in addition to your normal summon set, except Aroma Jasmine. You can only gain this effect once per turn. Once per turn, if you gain life points, draw one card. Aroma Jasmine is based on a jasmine flower, a genus from the olive family Olaceae. When they grow, they typically climb up shrubs and vines, appearing white in colour. You can see allusions to this on the plants in the background of the monster's artwork, as well as on the floor. Or maybe they're floating on water? The artwork looks a little bit vague. In aromatherapy, it is said that the jasmine plant's beneficial effect is that it can ease stress and tension. Whereas Aroma Jasmine's beneficial card effects are its continuous effect, that while your life points are higher than your opponent's, you can perform an extra normal summon of a plant type monster during your turn, and her secondary trigger ability is that once per turn, if you gain life points, you can draw a card. Which, I guess, getting more monsters on the field and drawing more cards could help relieve anyone's stress in a duel. In fact, looking a little bit closer at the monster in the artwork, apart from her looking a bit like Shiro from No Game No Life, well, at least to me anyway, we can see Jasmine is holding a bag full of her namesake, which she seems to be using in conjunction with her staff. In fact, if we look at all of the other aroma monsters as well, they all seem to have some sort of a magical aromatherapy staff with them too, so this could be how they're applying their effects. And if we go back and look at Aroma Jar's artwork, we can see that Aroma Jasmine is represented as the white candle. And finally, since the introduction of Link summoning, there is now a Link monster upgraded variant form of this card called Aroma Sarahfey Jasmine. Requiring 2 plant monsters while your life points are higher than your opponent's, this card and plant monsters this card points to cannot be destroyed by battle. You contribute 1 monster this card points to special summon 1 plant monster from your deck in defense position. You can only use this effect of Aroma Sarahfey Jasmine once per turn. Once per turn, if you gain life points, add 1 plant monster from your deck to your hand. Not only is this monster the first plant Link monster to be released, it is also, I think, the first Link monster that has appeared in one of my archetype videos. Don't quote me on that, I'm just like 99% sure. She was released in Japan's 2017 Link Vrains pack. Still waiting release at the time of this video to be released in the TCG. Aroma Sarahfey Jasmine seems to be a cross-pollination breed between 2 different plants, specifically between a jasmine plant and an Angelica plant. This seems to be alluded to by how Jasmine now has Angelica's wings, golden crown, and her outfit seems to have taken small inspirations from Angelica's as well. Her archetypal continuous effect is that as long as her life points are higher than the opponent's, cards she points to can't be destroyed in battle. Whereas her archetypal trigger ability is that she can add a plant type monster to your hand if you gain any life points. Aroma Kananga. Her effect is while your life points are higher than your opponent's, face-up monsters your opponent controls lose 500 attack and defense. Once per turn, if you gain life points, target one spell or trap your opponent controls, return it to the hand. Aroma Kananga is based on the Kananga odorata. Probably butchered all them, I'm so sorry. It is a plant where the yang flowers grow from, which I think is another word I've butchered. Ylang. Yang, definitely, the L's definitely silent, it must be, right? Anyway, the yang is what this monster's essential oil smelly is based on. They appear yellow with a long and droopy appearance, something that is further supported by Aroma Kananga being represented as the yellow candle in Aroma Jar's artwork. Looking at the names of the monster in the different languages, we can see that Germany is the only one to actually use the plant's name for the monster of yang, whereas every other country has been using the tree's name. So, well done Germany for being more accurate. Kananga's aromatherapy beneficial effect is that it provides a calming sensation that can help allegedly alleviate headaches, nausea and skin conditions, and allegedly even grow back hair. Aroma Kananga's beneficial archetypal effects is that her continuous effect is when your life points are higher than your opponent's, monsters your opponent has lose 500 attack and defense, while her trigger ability is that when you gain life points, she can return spells and traps to the opponent's hand. Aroma Rosemarie. While your life points are higher than your opponent's, if a plant type monster you control attacks, your opponent can activate monster effects until the end of the damage step. Once per turn, if you gain life points, target one face-up monster on the field, change its battle position. Aroma Rosemarie is based on the rosemary herb, identifiable by its needle-like leaves and blue flower petals. In aromatherapy, rosemarie's beneficial effects is that it is a mental stimulant, which can help enhance memory, focus, and in fact, brain performance in general. Aroma Rosemarie's beneficial archetypal card effects are her continuous effect, which allows you to, when your life points are higher, destroy monsters without their effects activating, as well her trigger effect is that when you gain life points, you must change the battle position of the monster on the field. This is a must, by the way, it's not an option. Fun fact, by the way, the rosemary plant can be considered an invasive species of plant in some places, since it can pop up anywhere and everywhere, making it a rather pesky and annoying plant for some. This is kind of like Aroma Rosemarie as well, since her effect to negate abilities and change battle positions of monsters seems to be rather a nuisance to the opponent, and the fact that this monster's change battle position effect is mandatory, which means you'll sometimes be changing your monster's battle positions by mistake. Yeah, it can be a bit annoying, you're right. Going back and looking at the artwork of Aroma Jar's artwork, we can see that Aroma Rosemarie is represented as the blue candle. And this monster also has an upgraded synchro form known as Aroma Sarahfey Rosemarie. Requiring one tuner and one or more non-tuner monsters, her effect is while your life points are higher than your opponent's, all plant-type monsters you control gain 500 attack and defense. Once per turn, if you gain life points, target one face-up card your opponent controls. That face-up card has its effects negated until the end of this turn. A combination of Rosemarie and Angelica again, Rosemarie now gains Angelica's wings, her crown, and her outfit now blends into a white colour, similar to that of Angelica's dress too. Her archetypal gimmick effects are her continuous effect, which is as long as you've got higher life points, you can gain 500 attack and defense, while her trigger effect is that she can negate one monster on the field's effect if you gain any life points. Aroma Bergamot. His effects are, while your life points are higher than your opponent's, if a plant type monster you control attacks a defense position monster, inflict piercing battle damage to your opponent. Once per turn, if you gain life points, this card gains 1000 attack and defense until the end of your opponent's turn. The heavy hitter of the archetype and the only male of the deck, Bergamot is based on the bergamot herb, also known as the Monarda didma. It is most identifiable by its red tubular flowers and red veined hairs that appear on it. In aromatherapy, bergamot plant's beneficial effects is that bergamot can treat stress, anxiety, and even skin conditions like eczema. Whereas Aroma Bergamot's continuous monsters archetypal gimmick effects, that's such a mouthful, is that as long as your life points are higher, plant monsters can deal piercing battle damage, while its trigger effect is that if you gain life points, this monster gains 1000 attack and defense, which when used in conjunction with the Aroma Field spell will mean a 3900 attack point monster. And Aroma Bergamot is represented as the red candle in Aroma Jar's artwork. And last but certainly not least, moving on to the support cards, we have the field spell, Aroma Garden. Its effect is once per turn, if you control an aroma monster, you gain 500 life points. Also, all monsters you control gain 500 attack and defense until the end of the opponent's next turn, even if this card leaves the field. If a face-up aroma monster you control is destroyed by battle or card effect and sent to the graveyard, gain 1000 life points. Dried Winds. If you gain life points, target one face-up monster your opponent controls, destroy it. If you control an aroma monster and your life points is at least 3000 higher than your opponent, you can pay life points equal to the difference, destroy face-up monsters your opponent controls whose combined attack is less than or equal to the life points you paid to activate this effect. You can only use each effect of Dried Winds once per turn. With Dried Winds as well, Aroma Bergamot and Kananga appear in this card's artwork. And since Bergamot is a fire attribute and Kananga is an earth attribute, the Dried Winds this card is referencing is the combination of those two elements. While the opposite to Dried Winds is Humid Winds. You can pay 1000 life points, add one aroma monster from your deck to your hand. If your life points is lower than your opponent, you gain 500 life points. You can only use each effect of Humid Winds once per turn. Now this card has Aroma Jasmine and Rosemarie in its card artwork, and since Jasmine is light and Rosemarie is water, the two combined together create the humid wind it is referencing, where humidity is when there is lots of water in the air. And with that guys, that's another archetype done. Let me know what you thought in the comment section below. Don't forget to support the channel by leaving a like, subscribing and all that jazz. But I want to say a big massive thank you to my supporters. Thank you first and foremost to my platinum supporters, you know you do 97, J24092, Chowderman36, as well to my gold backers Dylan Cunan, TheWolf18, Jack Sisson, Chungming Zen and David Shanahan. Thank you to everybody else supporting me on Patreon as well. A big thank you to my TGS YouTube members Shinjo CB and Reyes Sanchez. You guys help keep the channel going, so I want to say a big thank you to all of you. But other than that though guys, thank you for watching and I'll catch you later.